Hello, Central Texas. This is Rocky Miller, and I want to welcome you to the pregame show for the 11th annual Fellowship of Christian Athletes Victory Bowl pregame show. I want to welcome you. I have some very special guests with me. First off, to my right here, a man who needs no introduction. We have Louis Fite.
How you doing today, Waco? I'm just happy to be here. Just happy to be here with Rocky Miller. I mean, one of the guys I looked up to in high school, man, and one of the greatest defensive linemen I've ever seen in my life, quick and fast. And I just appreciate everything y'all do.
Hey, you running that bill up? I don't think I have it. I didn't pay for those compliments. No. And we also have with us Gary Ross, who is with Rivals Recruiting. Gary, and you, just kind of explain to us what you do in the recruiting world.
The recruiting world, we go out to camps and various, the Rivals 3-stock camps, and I focus on Baylor, so we'll go to the Baylor camps, and we'll look in on the players who are considering committing to Baylor and evaluate their offers, how they're doing at camps, one-on-ones, and catch up with them, get interviews, and see where they're sitting with the program.
So you spend a lot of time looking at – do you look at game film or go to the actual game or attend the actual camps?
It's going to be all – you're going to look at Huddle. Huddle has helped a lot when it comes to film, so you don't have to do a lot of road time. You can get on your computer. You have a certain kid you want to look at. He's one click away. So you can evaluate everything you need from there. Then you go to the camps themselves, and you meet them one-on-one in person and see how they're doing, in different aspects in the drills and go from there with it.
Now this is the Victory Bowl. So this is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Victory Bowl. The players that have been selected for this game were not necessarily selected for their athletic prowess only. Right. They were selected because they were recognized by the coaches and their teammates as being really high character guys, right? And so that's what we're celebrating here today. And so, but just to ask this question to you, Gary, were there any players in this that you recognize in the roster that showed up in any of your recruiting information when you were going over the roster?
As far as recruiting, no. I did recognize a few of the kids from Copper's Cove from covering with the Clean Daily Herald.
Okay.
They were very good athletes, but more than that, they are very high-character individuals, and they fit the mold of this very well.
So it's an opportunity to showcase football players that have displayed exemplary character while in high school, and also if they're not going on to college to play football, give them one last send-off and let them be recognized. Now, Louis, you were a great football player in high school and college, and do you remember your last high school game?
Well, my last high school game was bad. That's pretty bad. We played against the same team that we beat 36-7, the second game of the season. And it was just, it's hard to remember. I don't want to remember anything about that game. It was just a bad day, so.
It's interesting that you bring that up. So your last high school game was not a fond memory. But this is a way for a kid to remember his last high school game in a really positive manner. When you talk about you get to come out here and compete and have fun, but the outcome of the game is not really. Of course, I'm sure each and every player will play to win, but by and large, it's just recognition of what they've done for their school and their team, and what their coaches really think of them. So there's not the pressure in the game.
That's what we did. You remember Athletes in Action?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Dave, man. Just running for Athletes in Action and, having us around the community in Waco. A lot of people knew us, even like the older people, they got to know us in churches and everything like that. So just for Athletes in Action was just great,
Yeah, Athletes in Action I think was a Christian based youth organization that Louis and I was a part of growing up. We mostly ran track with them, but they came around during football season and other sporting events to support us because we were members of the track team. It's very interesting that that I don't know if that organization still exists, but I know FCA existed when we were in school. I don't know if it was mandatory. I know it wasn't mandatory, but it was definitely an organization that our coach, Coach Tusa, definitely encouraged us to be a part in and be active in.
We always did it. I mean, me, LaCurtis, Terry Bell, we was leaders, and we wanted our guys to show that we was just not athletes. We was good kids off the football field. We was church guys. We was raised up in church families, and just going like a FCA. Just being around good people, being around Catholic people or Baptist people. People that really love you from the soul. That's the kind of thing I love to be. And we just try to give that to our football players every day to make sure that we're better off the football field than on the football field.
Absolutely. A lot of the lessons that I know that Coach Tusa and his staff taught us benefit me well beyond the football field, and instilled great work ethic and dependability. Displaying kindness, being thoughtful towards your teammates and your community. It was a great experience for me, and it's one of the FCA is one of those programs that is a cornerstone of athletics in Texas.
Right, and I think a lot of it is the coaches that come and bring the FCA to a program, because I've known towns who've never been a part of it before until a certain coach moves in, and then instills the everything that the FCC stands for in the community.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then everybody builds around that, and it grows. Like you mentioned Richland Springs earlier. Richland Springs they're really into FCA, and it shows throughout their community. And I think that carries over into their program for their success.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting that you bring up Richland Springs. We were having a conversation off camera about the kids that have been selected in this game. Now, this is 11-man football that they're going to be playing today, but there are 6-man athletes, six-man football players that'll be playing here today, and this will be their first time playing 11-man football at the high school level.
I think they'll transition well. I mean, you see it. You don't see too many kids going D1 from 6-man. I could think of a few, like Mitchell Parsley. He was an outstanding spread back at Kroll, and now he went to Wayland Baptist, I believe, and he was their quarterback and does great. You won't see them going D1, but they'll go to the smaller colleges and they'll make the transition well. I think they're more conditioned for the game. Yes. They might not necessarily have the strength, because in 6-man, like I grew up playing 6-man in Oglesby, and we didn't spend a lot of time in the weight room. Like, 11-man, y'all focus hard on the weight room. Well, we had to focus on conditioning. So, I think that's the biggest part, is the bulk part, getting used to the weight room going forward with these kids. Right.
So you think in this scenario, there won't be as much of an adjustment as you would think?
No, I don't think it will. I mean, they're familiar with the game because they watch it on Saturdays and Sundays. Okay. They have a general idea of what to expect, and I think they'll be fine going into it.
I mean, when I looked at 6-man football, I always looked at Richland Springs. My wife lived in family is from San Saba, Texas, and I just fell in love with Richland Springs. With the coach they had. I think he just left. But man, just seeing those kids just prepare for the football game, and be serious, and a lot. I told them, I told a lot of guys, I say, man, you guys can play Division I football. Mm-hmm. I mean, Richland Springs had some athletes. It was a couple of running backs I seen, wide receivers I seen, but your offensive linemen could catch balls too.
Yes.
So it's kind of an advantage when everybody can catch the ball.
When everybody's eligible, huh?
We know we couldn't catch the ball. Some of us, don't throw the ball to us. But in 6-man, man, it's just, I feel like that they can adapt to 11-man football. It's just like you say, just like the weight room is probably holding them back. But by athletic ability, they can play with 11-man football.
Well, they definitely will have the conditioning to play 11-man football, and this will be having to play either one side of the ball or have a much reduced area of responsibility when you talk about coverage and gaps and stuff like that. Right. That'll be it'll be a smaller area to cover.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's
you won't
true.
have to cover as much space.
No. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just it's just an interesting perspective about this game, is that they didn't just look at 11-man football players. They looked at football players, and they got people from players from throughout the community. Lewis, first off, I've been knowing Lewis my entire life, just about. Me and Lewis grew up in the same neighborhood. Shout out to East Waco. And Lewis, you were I tell you a story, Lewis. You may not know this, but the first time I ever heard the name Lewis Fite, it was not related to it was related to athletics, but not football. Lewis, you were the only guy in our neighborhood at a very young age. I had to be maybe 9 or 10, so you had to be probably 7 or 8, and you were a guy that could turn flips. That's what Lewis was known for in the neighborhood. He was like a gymnast at 7 or 8 years old. And I've never asked you this question, Lewis, but I was just wondering, at that age, where did you learn to turn those flips and do that?
My brother Darren, Darren Lowe, we was in California, and he used to always just flip, and I used to always follow after my big brother. And I just wanted to learn. So one day he just started teaching me real quick, teaching me. And I learned how to do a backwards flip just by flipping off a mattress. And I kept hitting my knees. And one day I flipped over and hit my feet. And like, oh, I can do this now, I started doing it. We moved down to Waco. It was in the YMCA. The YMCA, we was flipping. And that's how I got my name, just by flipping and racing. When I first beat, I think his name was Willie McQuarter.
Okay,
Willie
bam.
Fast. I come down and I beat Bam at a young age, and Keith Kimball to me was an athlete.
Absolutely.
Kimball. And I mean, Keith used to race all the time, and Willie McQuarter, and who else?
Man, you bringing back some memories, Lewis.
So many names.
We had a tremendous concentration of athletes,
yes, sir,
in our neighborhood,
YMCA,
growing around the Doris Miller YMCA. And that's one question I always like. Lewis was a highly recruited football player coming out of high school, then went to junior college, and was highly recruited coming out of
junior. I was number one running back
coming out of junior college. In that era, Gary, it was pretty much, I guess, word of mouth about athletes and their athletic exploits. Now it's more. It almost seems like now it's almost systematic. In if a kid meets certain benchmarks, they then become a recruitable player. Am I off base or?
No, I mean I would say that's correct. But you also got a lot of. I think the exposure is easier now with the internet, and I mean, one kid can become a sensation overnight by just like one run,
right?
But instead of putting in the work week after week like you were having to do, and then now people around Waco. I mean, I've always heard Lewis Fite. Growing up, I've been told he's the best. But outside of Waco, people back then might not have had that opportunity.
Right
now, if you had the internet now, you'd be known all over. Yeah, and it would make recruiting a lot easier also.
Yes.
Again, I go back to Lewis. What was your recruiting experience like after having a senior year where you were the 5A Offensive Player of the Year? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What was that experience like?
That was. I mean, I loved it a little bit, but I didn't love it. But it was just amazing, man. It was just, like meeting all the coaches. I met some amazing coaches that's coaching right now off in the NFL. Just being around, just going to going to schools, visiting schools, meeting other athletes from other states and everything like that. And it just being around that was just amazing. It was scary. I think I committed to 5 colleges. I couldn't turn no one down. Those Tusa was, you can't do that. I said, I'm sorry, coach, but it's just, me. It's just I couldn't turn the coaches down. I didn't understand the recruiting thing, but it was just amazing to me, and I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, now I don't recall you recruit being committed to 5 schools, Lewis. But however, you had to. again, let me just go back. Let's go back in time. You were the 5A Player of the Year. You had a senior year. You not only had a senior year that was exceptional, you had a high school career that was exceptional, topped off with a senior year that was absolutely mind-boggling when you talk about numbers and just highlights.
Yes, sir.
Is what I recall. And so you had to be at the very top of everybody's
Everything.
recruiting list.
Yeah.
And so I think that made it kind of
That was, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, coming out, coming out the locker room and I'm seeing like 30, 40, 50 colleges, and everybody, hey, they're out there for you, they're out there for you. And I'm me being out of Waco, East Waco. It was just, I was like, it was just, it was crazy to me. It was amazing to me. But I had to keep humble. I had to keep the right attitude. Coach Tusa buried that in my mind. And just do it right. You got a lot of people out there for you, but you're doing it for the other kids too. So don't do nothing crazy to make these colleges don't come back and talk to these kids. And that's what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to say the right thing. I always wanted to do the right thing. And like I say, just I remember like they say, what's the coach from Alabama, Saban, when Saban was like assistant. Saban come down, he talked to me, and I was like, hey, when I see him now, I was like, I remember that guy. I remember Lou Holtz coming down. I remember talking to Spike Dykes, stuff like that. And I told him all, like, I just want to play football, it doesn't matter what.
And at that point, there was a lot of Waco High players on Southwest Conference teams throughout the So not only would you, when you were getting recruited, when you went to Oklahoma, Ted may have been there. When you went to A&M, Anthony may have been there. Yeah. When you went to Tech, Chubby and James Walker and Wayne Walker may have been there.
Because those guys, come on, man, you gonna come fight? I'm coming, man. And I was like, Coach Susan, you can't do that, Lou. I said, I am so. I was saying, I committed to Oklahoma State, and like in 1 week. Hey, Coach Tusa wanted to choke me to death, man. I said, okay, my bad.
Like I say, Lewis, we come from very humble beginnings. Yeah. And so, and I just ask you, Gary, you were mentioning off camera that you are you know that word I'm talking about, intricately involved in the recruiting process at Baylor.
Right. Because
you are able to track recruits and their visits, commitments, workouts, and things like that. What happens to a kid now that was a Lewis's caliber? How is it different now than when a kid is that's now kid Lewis was known all over the state. Now these recruits are national, right? Yeah, national stars. And so how is it different now?
I would say it's pretty similar. I mean, going off of what you're saying with your experience, but it might be amplified with you have more eyes on you. Yeah. I don't understand how the kids can handle the pressure. And that's one thing I was going to ask you is how are you able to control that pressure? Because I know when I'm trying to reach out to these kids and ask them questions that I'm not the only one. You got numerous other people.
I had Coach Tusa, I had Coach Bishop, I had Coach Love. I had those coaches like telling me, hey, focus. Play football and just leave it on. It's just like leave it on the football field. A lot of these, we were saying off camera, a lot of guys come to these athletes and they say, hey, I can get you a scholarship. But to me, you can get yourself a scholarship by working hard, go out there on that football field and playing as hard as you can get just for your football team, for your city. A lot of these kids already got Notre Dame on their things and everything. Like, I've never paid attention to it, I never looked into the newspaper and seen who was behind me, how many yards I got. I didn't care because all I wanted to do was play football for Waco High and for the city of Waco.
I know one thing I've noticed with covering recruiting is you'll see a lot of the kids, especially our high-profile kids, they want to be package deals.
Yes.
Was that common? Has that always been common? Like,
it was common with me and LaCurtis. I felt like if I signed with Baylor, I wanted Baylor to offer LaCurtis Jones a scholarship. I thought he was one of the best linebackers out there. He was just small, and I wanted that package deal, so I asked Baylor for it, and and we got it. So it's like I think it is. You know, you always gonna have a friend, a guy that you know that can play football, that's really not getting recruited, that's really just not getting the respect. You know, and all you got to do is just, hey, coach, I think this kid can play. Just, you know, just like the same thing LeBron is doing right now to a lot of his athletes. You know, I mean, I seen a thing with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway when with like the movie. Yeah. When Shaquille O'Neal played with him in the movie and said, hey, I want this guy to be on the Orlando Magic. So it's always a guy that you always gonna respect and want to be there with you because you know he can play football. So I think the package deal has been there for a long time.
I think what I think of the package deal in this situation, a package deal helps a kid when you're a kid coming from a small town and you have a friend that could benefit having somebody there, whatever. Right. I think it gives it if a team has a scholarship to offer that other player. Right. I think coaches kind of look at it as, if he's a marginal player, if I get the top athlete, I'll give 2 scholarships away to get 1 grant. You know, so because a lot of times you'll find out that you know, you look at Alabama and University of Texas, they offer 25 scholarships a year, and when you look at their rosters each year, they only have about 85. Sometimes less than that scholarship players. So that means that there are 15 every 4 years. There are about 15 players that aren't on the roster that they either signed and they're not on the roster for some reason. So in that case, in some cases, I think the numbers allow you to kind of spend a scholarship and then you have some flexibility later. I think nowadays package deals are prevalent because players are doing it because they feel that they have leverage. I think when you did it, Lewis, it was just it would cause a buddy. It was basically a buddy system. In your case and in other cases I've seen. But in nowadays, I think players create leverage because it's not now the package deals aren't a marginal player and a superstar. Right. No. Now it's 2 superstars.
Exactly. I'm gonna get your linebacker.
So they use it as a means to create leverage in the program. And so again, I tend to revert back to hard work being the measure of whether or not you should be awarded a scholarship. That's true. Talent and ability should be determining factors. And because at the end of the day, I went to junior college, played with some really good players, a lot of really talented guys that ultimately they could have been NFL players, could have been great Division I players, but they didn't have the social skills to make it in those environments. And so that's what's gonna. I tell people all the time, the biggest hurdle in college for that I saw for me was not athletic from an athletic standpoint. It's the social skills that a player possesses, and that often determines whether a kid is successful. Ross, is social skills? I always wanted this. Is social skills and academics and in some cases criminal background factor in recruiting rating?
I would say I don't know about the rating, but I mean, as far as recruiting as a whole, every school is going to look into that. And I mean, talking with some of the kids, you know, you'll have some that'll give you a 10-minute answer, you know, then you'll have others that'll give you like 3 words. So you just got to balance it out.
And some of them, man, it's just they just too arrogant. They too much on themselves, you know. And with me, it's like everybody that trains with me, they say, you know, Coach, you never talk about yourself. You never do this too much. You know, you're always about us and this right here. I say, because, you know, I've never talked about myself. It wasn't about me. It was about Waco High. It was about, you know, Coach Tusa. It was about, you know, I want to win for Coach Love. I want to win for Coach Vissel tonight. Coach Haynes, the track coach, you know. People like that, you know, that I knew was behind me.
Now, Lewis, you bring up well, you are involved in player development.
Yes, sir.
You have a player development business now, and so you get a chance to interact with a lot of players, right? And you just mentioned that you don't offer your credentials, your laundry list of accolades, as being a college player, all-time high school player, professional football player. You don't offer that as part of your credentials. Is there any reason why, or
It's because it's not about me. It's about the player that I'm coaching. It's about the guy that's going to do something for his life, And like when I train you, I'm always going to talk to you about what to do, how to do it, how to present yourself, how to get your character is going to take you longer. The thing you're supposed to do off that football field, like when you have nobody calling you, you got to wake up yourself. You got to work at yourself. You got to do multiple things for yourself, and the way you do it is just be a good person, listen to every coach, every one of them out there on the football field. Every one of my coaches taught me. It just wasn't my running back coach,
That's interesting, Lewis. When and that's was something that I was going to bring up today. Like I said, me and you've had many conversations over the years, and I've asked you in a number of different ways. But whenever I asked you about what was the key to your successes on the football field, you instantly, without any reservation, go to your coaches, your teammates. You were essentially a highlight film as a player, and if any player you would say was born with, or I hate to use the word born with exceptional talent, but you had you definitely had skills and abilities that you would think that could not be taught.
Yes, sir.
But you always go back to your success being about your coaches and your teammate. Kind of tell me about that, Lewis, and tell me about what happened at Waco High that made you feel that was the reason for your success.
Well, I didn't have the parents like everybody else had. The background parents, the parents to go to the games, support you. So everybody that supported me, like Coach Tusa, like other coaches that just supported me. I remember one game I played, and I seen a coach from my 7th grade team, coach, and I was like, "Oh, Coach, you come to the games?" I come to every game. I drive everywhere, and it's just that it was a family to me. It was, everybody treated me equal. They didn't treat me like Lewis Fite, that's supposed to be star. They treated me equal, and they wanted me to treat people equal. And like I say, I was really, really homeless, and my family was Waco High.
So hey, you know what? That is, of course, coming from humble circumstances, that's how a lot of us felt, Lewis, regardless of what our economic situation was going through Waco High, Ross. Is that Waco High was a family. And that's one of the great things that I had, speaking of Waco High, I'd asked Coach Gaville, could he make it today? And because he had a family obligation,
right,
he wasn't able to make it here on the show with us. But that's one of the things I was so happy to see at a red and white game. Okay, at the red and white game, it's because I felt that family atmosphere again, Lewis. I felt like it felt like something I hadn't felt in years, and I can't put my hand on what it is. And I've had several conversations with other parents and other former players, and it's something that a coach brings that you can't. That Coach Tusa had, obviously.
Yes, sir.
That Kwame has, obviously.
Yeah. That
you just really can't put your finger on. That made the environment a family environment. Ross, coming from a small town, I guess that's inherent to everything you guys do, in a small town.
It really is, because I mean, like you were saying, everybody else is your family, right? Like,
Yes, sir.
that's how it is. Everybody is your family. Everybody helps raise you. You know, if you get in trouble, you're gonna be held accountable. I might be held accountable by my friends' parents. You know,
Right.
Everybody is a part of making you successful, and I think you'll see that a lot in small towns.
Yeah, and like I said, I Coach Tusa was a tremendous coach, and of course he knew X's and O's and strategies and techniques. But to me, his greatest gift was the way he was able to organize and discipline and instill values in his players. And he and the coaching staff always did a great job at that. As we're here at WISD Stadium.
And that's what I tell. I tell a lot of like football teams right now. I tell a lot of kids. You know, they say, "Hey, we won a championship." I said, "I'm telling you like this: to be a championship football team, you got to have a championship staff. You got to have a championship coaching staff to have a championship football team. Guys, that's great. That's great. You know, motivators, father figures. You know, you don't see them everywhere you go. You know, I've never seen Coach Tusa anywhere in Waco. Nowhere, not even eating plays, anything. But I knew I was going to see him at school. I knew I was going to see him on the football field. Same thing with Coach Love. Same thing with Coach Bishop. Those guys made me know that, hey, when you want to be a great coach, you got to be a great person. You got to be a person that's going to be accountable through I've never heard nothing bad about any of them.
Yeah,
you know, because I never looked at anything. I guess a lot of people look at stuff. But I just go by who's coaching me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can honestly say, and I'll say this, you know, many times. I've said this in private. This will be the first time I say it publicly. For over 30 years, one of the references on my resume is Coach Tusa.
Same thing,
right?
Same thing.
And so in the course of 30 years, I've had, you know, 3 jobs. I hadn't had a lot of jobs, but. And each time they called Coach Tusa, I got the job.
Hey, that's crazy because my wife would say, "Well, who you gonna put on your resume?" Because I was gonna get a job at coaching at Fort Worth, and I said, "I'm put down, you know, Coach Tusa." And she was like, "Well, that's your father." I said, "Man, that's my father, man. I mean, that's a guy that he's just so special to me. That's a special man to me. He will always be special to me." And he's a great man.
Yeah, and like I say, and that brings us back to the fellowship of Christian athletes that Coach Tusa brought to us. And we were always a part of it. He always encouraged to be part of it, and that's what we're here to celebrate today. Is the Victory Bowl, the 11th annual Victory Bowl, and as we wrap up our pregame show. I want to thank Lewis for having me. I want to appreciate Gary Ross of Rival Recruiting. I'm gonna give you guys a chance to make some closing statements, but I just wanted to once again mention who you guys are before that. So I'll let you wrap up, Gary, and tell us what's going on with Rivals Recruiting, and where's the Sikkim Nation at right now?
As far as right now, I mean, Baylor has 5 guys who have committed, and they're hosting camps. You'll have another camp tomorrow. Will be their 3rd camp of the summer, and then they'll have 2 more throughout June.
Okay.
So right now, I mean, they're in the midst of getting their recruiting class together. It's been a slow go so far. I think now that your high caliber players are out of the way, I think Baylor's going to focus on people who they could, really get into the program, and we'll start seeing them get more as the coming weeks.
Now, since there's been a coaching change, it's not a new coaching change. We're working on Coach Rule's 3rd year, right?
3rd year, yes.
3rd year. Have you noticed any difference in the caliber of recruits that Baylor is getting right now?
I think when you look last year, they had a really great recruiting class. I mean, you had stud player. You had Jalen Ellis. I mean, he could have went anywhere in the nation to play receiver, but he wanted to come here to Baylor and play. A lot of that has to do with Coach Bell coaching him in high school.
Okay.
But I think overall the talent is there and they're getting them in. It's just more of a fit in your system, and because a lot of kids, they want to go play spread out ball. Well, Coach Rule is more of a professional style, so he's not
Pro
going to spread
style
the
coach.
ball out. So that's what we're looking at.
Oh, okay. The other part of that is last question is that, and I always ask Baylor people this: do you think Baylor and Baylor athletics, Baylor football, will return to the level they were not so long ago?
I don't know, honestly, that you'll ever see that again. I mean, I would love to say yes, but that was something special. I think you'll get close to it, but I'll honestly sit here and say I don't know if Baylor will ever reach that kind of level. There'll be a solid, 8-9 win program consistently, but I don't think you'll. I don't know. I don't see it happening.
National ranking.
Yeah. For all its intents and purposes, Coach Braz was a special coach.
Exactly.
And he did something very special here.
Yeah.
All right, Lewis, and we're going to wrap up. But Lewis, kind of tell us, basically tell us how can you be found, and you train players all over the state.
I train players from Bishop Dunn High School right now. I train players from Killeen High School. I train players from Waco High School. I'm still gonna keep the tradition down here. My son is Contarious Fite. He played for Killeen High right now. It's kind of
Lewis,
kind of hard to say that word right now.
Lewis.
Anyway, that's an enemy. But anyway, he's Contarious Fite, and he's going to be, to me, he's a little bit better than I was. I've been
Don't do him like that, Lewis.
His size is amazing. He's already 5'11". I don't know where he got that from, but that's why I know there's a Lord above.
Yeah,
I couldn't even jump 5'11". But I got a great fundamental football camp. You can always find me at Lewis Fite, area code 817-877-7052. And I'm just a guy that I travel. I would travel to come train. I do a lot of football camps, fundamental football camps, off in the Dallas area, off in the Fort Worth area, and I'm just giving back to these kids the best way I can.
All right, Lewis, I'm gonna put a bug in your ear, and we're gonna have to get a Lewis Fite football camp here in Waco at some point, and I'll be willing to work with you on that. And I hope there's someone out there that's listening that can help help put that together, because it's something that's long overdue.
It's a dream, and like I say, thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Waco, Texas, and I would love to throw a football camp off in Waco, Texas. I mean, this is what raised me. It's in my blood, and I love to get back to Waco.
All right, everybody. This has been Syntech Sports. I want to thank you all for tuning in. The game is coming up in 30 minutes. Go get you some popcorn and a cold drink, and we'll be coming right through. All right, buddy. And we'll come right back at you.